Dear colleagues, first of all, I would like to thank the Institute of Archaeology of the Czech Academy of Sciences for the invitation to present the recent results of our Bronze Age research group working in the Institute of Archaeology Research Center for the Humanities, Budapest, and granted by the Momentum program of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. In the first part of my presentation, I would like to show you the aims and several case studies of the Momentum Mobility Research Group launched in 2015. In the last slides, I will present our new project, the Momentum Basis Research Group, starting from 2023. The absence of written sources during this chronological period means that burials, settlement remains, and artifacts serve as the record of past lifestyles. Since the beginning of the archaeological discipline of the 19th and 20th century, migration taking place during the Bronze Age and their possible reconstructions based on the archaeological and physical anthropological methods represented a key aspect of research. The spread of metallurgical innovations, such as bronze casting, was linked directly to population movements from regions both east and west of the Carpathian Basin, namely from the area of the Yamnaya and the Belbika communities. In its early phases, archaeological research relied on the formal analogues of objects, typology, and traced the origins of artifacts and explored the ways these items traveled across large distances. The trajectories outlined by these objects testify for the existence of networks between faraway locations and for the intensive exchange of Bronze Age material alloyed from copper and tin, the new material, and finished bronze objects, as well as other valuable materials, for example, amber and gold, within these networks. The second half of the 20th century signaled a great paradigm shift in the discipline due to the application of new scientific technologies, leading to the identification and new interpretation of settlement structures and burial traditions. The most recent advances of archaeogenetics and isotope studies have shown that behind the great changes of lifestyles and subsistence strategies, the movements of both individuals and communities should also be considered. Based on new results of the so-called Third Science Revolution, Bronze Age is of significant importance as it laid the foundations for the genetic profile of contemporary Europe, namely by the mixing of the three main components: Mesolithic hunter-gatherers, Neolithic farmers with Anatolian roots, and the steppe shepherds at the dawn of the Bronze Age, although to varying degrees depending on the region. In this context, this period is regarded as the point at which the process of Indo-Europeanization of Eurasia began. Furthermore, the Bronze Age represents a significant step in the development of political institutions and the formation of the earliest states. In Europe, this period saw the emergence of chiefdom societies and the institutionalization of social inequality. The Momentum Mobility Research Group focused on the first part of the nearly 2 millennium long Bronze Age between 2600, 2500 and 800 BC in the Carpathian Basin. The primary research question investigated by the team was whether similar population movements can be identified behind the major social strategies that took place in the Carpathian Basin between the 26th and the 15th century BC. During the first millennium of the Bronze Age. Our research program employs a range of 21st century multidisciplinary methodologies, relying on, besides the traditional approaches of archaeology, the advances of genetics, pathology, absolute dating, isotope geochemistry, and geophysics, in order to better understand the transformations that took place in Bronze Age societies of the Carpathian Basin. The research group is based on the cooperation of the former institutes of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, the Research Center for the Humanities, which now belongs to University Eötvös Loránd, the Center for Energy Research, Wigner Research Center for Physics, Research Center for Astronomy and Earth Sciences, and Institute for Nuclear Research, which are part of the Hungarian Research Network, the HUNREN. The work of the mentioned research centers were complemented by wide-ranging collaboration of other institutions. For example, the Hungarian National Museum, Hungarian Natural History Museum, and other county museums. This enabled the joint work of generations of archaeologists, physical anthropologists, and specialists of natural and life sciences to complete the database of the Hungarian Bronze Age chronology, analysis of burials and mobility, settlements, and artifacts. One of the bioarchaeological methods the project employs examines the ratio of strontium and oxygen isotopes in human bones and teeth to pinpoint the geographical locations where the given individual was born or grew up. We also carry out carbon isotope analysis on human and animal bones to identify crucial details regarding the lifestyle and the diet of Bronze Age populations. With the integration of stable isotope and ADNA data, it is possible to investigate mobility of Bronze Age populations. Strontium oxygen, and carbon stable isotope tests carried out on the molars from inhumations and settlement burials in collaboration with the universities of Quinnipiac, the Yale, and the Bologna universities, as well as with the Institute for Nuclear Research in Debrecen, confirmed that in several cemeteries during the early and Middle Bronze Age from Hungary, there was no evidence for the presence of immigrants, while among other communities sampled from this region, in some cases, the ratio of non-locals was as high as 40%. DNA testing of ancient human remains is carried out in the Institute for Archaeogenomics of the Research Center for the Humanities, Budapest, and in the Harvard Medical School. The outcomes have shown significant levels of mobility in the Carpathian Basin during the Bronze Age. The advent of bronze as a material and the subsequent development of bronze-making techniques across Europe had a profound impact on the socio-economic structure of communities throughout the period. The innovative technologies, knowledge, and raw materials led to the formation of new networks and the intensification of existing inequalities. Our objective is to continue the traditional archaeological elemental composition and production process analysis of copper and bronze jewelry, tools and weapons recovered from the burials and settlements. This is achieved through the use of non-destructive XRF and neutron methods and destructive archaeometallurgical sampling in cooperation with the Budapest Neutron Center, the Miskolc University, the Institute for Nuclear Research, Debrecen, and the Kurt Engelhorn Centrum for Archaeometry, Mannheim. By integrating all these datasets, we can explore in greater detail how and through what processes the use of bronze changed the history of the Carpathian Basin and the surrounding region. In the vicinity of the copper ore occurrences in the triangle of the Eastern Alps, Northwestern Carpathians, and the Saxo-Bohemian ore mountains, hoards with several hundred kilograms of copper or bronze in the form of neck rings or axes were discovered. The copper artifacts used by the communities living in Western Hungary during the early Bronze Age, between 2200 and 1900 BC, are associated with the classical Özenring copper after the main raw material of the mentioned neck rings. After the spread of tin bronzes around 2000 BC, the bronze objects used by the population of the younger early Bronze Age in the central and western part of the Carpathian Basin between 1900 and 1600 BC during the Middle Bronze Age, according to the chronology used by Hungarian research, was also made of this material alloyed with 5–10% tin. The significance of copper sources in the Garam region is also demonstrated by the fact that 80% of the special locally produced jewelry types found in the Tornonimedi hoards are made of this metal, and its use can be observed as far as Scandinavia. According to our current knowledge, there were no significant quantities of copper ore in the territory of present-day Hungary. That is why only one neck ring is usually found in burials or hoards. Recently, A hoard weighing a total of 5.3 kilograms was discovered in the outskirts of Röjtök-Muzsaj, close to Lake Neusiedl, which contained 30 copper neck rings. This location is the location of the find suggests that in addition to the copper sources of the Garam Valley, copper raw materials may also have come from the Little Carpathians to the early Bronze Age communities living in the western part of the Carpathian Basin. Now I would like to present some of our case studies with various aspects of mobility and trade. The first case study is the Balatonkeresztúr-réti site. Here. Located 3 kilometers from the southern shore of Lake Balaton. Here, during rescue excavations preceding the construction of the M7 motorway, inhumation burials and 2 pit burials, one of them with multiple human skeletons, were found. Due to the lack of characteristic finds, single burials were relatively dated to early Bronze Age, while the multiple pit burial with 8 human skeletons, 3 adults and 5 children was defined as a household refuse pit utilized for mortuary purposes, sometimes in the late Copper Age or in the early Bronze Age. However, based on the Brachikrank Taurit type, the so-called Bell-Beaker or Glockenbecher type skull, anthropological analysis suggested Bronze Age dating. Complex bioarchaeological analysis of radiocarbon dating of the mentioned burials provided 3 archaeological horizons. 1 pit burial from the Somogy-Vinkovci horizon, 11 inhumations from the end of the early Bronze Age Kisapostag, or the earliest encrusted pottery culture, between the 21st and the 19th centuries BC, while the multiple pit burial were radiocarbon dated to the Middle Bronze Age between the 19th and the 17th century BC. According to the results, the radiocarbon and aDNA analysis of this early Bronze Age cemetery, published in the journal Molecular Biology and Evolution, the Kisapostag population had an outstandingly high, up to 47% Mesolithic hunter-gatherer genetic ancestry level compared to the Bronze Age groups of the region, beside the genetic material of the Anatolian farmers and the Yamnaya component from the steppe. The origin of this outstandingly high hunter-gatherer ancestry can be traced back to the previously overlooked regions of Eastern Europe, such as today's Ukraine, Moldavia, Romania, or Belarus. This result is in line with earlier archaeological assumptions of several scholars based on the so-called real stick pottery decoration of the Kisapostag culture, which was originated, for example, by István Bóna from the corded ware groups of the Middle Dnieper area. This population settled down in the southern shore of Lake Balaton, was the genetic basis of the succeeding community of the Trans-Danubian encrusted pottery culture, according to the DNA analysis of the Middle Bronze Age mass grave. So here, these are the single burials, and these are the younger dated individuals of the mass grave. The result of this genetic connection was also suggested by former Bronze Age research based on pottery typochronology. The specific genetic makeup of the newcomers thinned out generation by generation, but remained characteristic for centuries in the region. Another new result of this study is that grave groups were established along family relationships, as the kinship network of the population approximately follows the distribution of individuals in A and B grave groups. The earliest members of the group represent themselves in grave group B, while their children and likely grandchildren and/or nephews in grave group A. Here we can compare the interactions of this population. The site of Balatonkeresztúr can be seen with a red star, Kisapostag and encrusted pottery culture archaeological sites with dark blue circles, and their archaeological connections based on pottery and metal finds with light blue circles. This can be compared to red and purple circles representing individuals that have similar type of hunter-gatherer ancestry. Red circles are preceding, pinks are succeeding or contemporaneous to this group. It is interesting to note the genetic connections with people in the area of the Erzgebirge and in eastern parts of the Carpathian Basin, in locations where pottery and metal finds of the Trans-Danubian population was found too, supporting the interpretation of movements of people connected to the existing trade connections, perhaps with exogamous marriages. Here I would like to show you the first facial reconstruction of a Bronze Age woman from today in Hungary. This reconstruction was also the first study in Hungary for which it was possible to use genetic data, making a more realistic face, including details of the phenotype, hair, eye, and skin color. The remains of this lady was discovered in grave 13 of the early Bronze Age cemetery of Balatonkeresztül. According to the anthropological examination of her well-preserved skull and skeletal bones, she died between the age of 35 and 45. Based on the results of the radiocarbon measurements carried out in the laboratory of the Institute for Nuclear Research, Atomki in Debrecen, she was most probably buried between 2040 and 1890 BC. The facial reconstruction was started by making the exact copy of the original skull in order not damaging the bones. The computer tomography scan of the skull was taken in the Medical Imaging Center of Semmelweis University, and then the plastic copy was made using selective laser sintering technology. During the facial reconstruction, the soft tissues of the face were rebuilt on the plastic skull based on the shape of the bones so that they would faithfully reflect the original facial features. In the sculpting phase of facial reconstruction, we modeled the details of the face, assuming moderate nutrition. The woman lived for about 35-45 years, so on the reconstructed face, mainly on the forehead and at the nasal root, the mimetic wrinkles typical of individuals of the Maturus age group were indicated. Considering the results of phenotype data of the woman, despite her minor steppe heritage, she blended into the Neolithic pigmentation patterns. Fundamentally, she had rather creole-toned skin and brownish blonde hair of a darker shade. Her face may have been freckled, and her eye color was shaped by both the genetic variants responsible for blue and brown pigmentation. Based on the paternal Y chromosome relations discovered in the Balatonkeresztül cemetery, the communities of the culture, of the Kisapostak culture, may belong to a fundamentally patrilocal society. Female exogamy, a general phenomenon in the Bronze Age, can also be observed among them based on admixture proportions. Although this may have been limited, as the woman buried in grave 13 had local strontium isotope signature. We gave her the name Jelena based on the name days of the discovery and her DNA J haplogroup. Fragments of copper or bronze beads unearthed from the grave suggest that the woman had a relatively high social status within the community living at the settlement. These metal tubular beads belong to the typical headdress or cap of the era, discovered, for example, from Ordacsehi, another early Bronze Age cemetery of the Kisapostak culture from the southern side of Lake Balaton. No signs of external trauma or disease on the skeleton were discovered, so the cause of death is unknown. Another case study of the burial is the burial of a high-status male from Balatonakari from the last phase of the Kisapostak culture. This burial, which was discovered in 1965 during railway constructions by workers, with only later observations by archaeologists, the pottery and metal finds were published by István Torma in the 1970s. Thanks to the help of the colleagues from the Latkodezső Museum Veszprém, we had the possibility to investigate the human remains from the burial, supplemented with information gained through the scientific examination of the metal grave goods. The bones were identified as skeletal remains of an adult male, age 55-60. According to AMS radiocarbon dating of the bones, the Balatonakali man was buried between the 20th and the 19th century BC. According to the description of the workers who discovered the grave, the skeleton was found under stone slabs, laid on his left side, or perhaps with his upper body on the back, and with just the head and legs turned to the left. This position was similar to inhumations from the mentioned Balatonkeresztúr site. A contemporaneous burial covered by a stone structure is known from the Dunajváros-Dunadülő cemetery too. This later one is important because according to Magdolna Vicez's description, the burial was a solitary one, similarly to the Balatonakali grave, situated 30 meters away from the burial groups of the Dunajváros cemetery. The grave goods in Balatonakali were placed in front of the male individual's face and beside the hand. The gold herring was possibly on the right side of the head. Relying on the descriptions of the grave furnishings and taking into consideration the green patina traces left on the bones, a 3D reconstruction of the burial was drawn up. István Torma suggested that the distinguished social status of the Balatonakali male burial is clearly indicated by the large number of grave goods, but also by its unusual inhumation burial rite. However, as we have seen, in contrast to the 1980s and 1970s and 1980s, we are now aware that cremation burials placed in urns and inhumations can both be associated with the Kisapostag pottery style. Torma's assumptions about the high social status of the individual buried at Balatonakali is still relevant. The bronze grave goods weighing 840 grams and the heavy, solid 16-gram gold herring, the artifact types and chronology all suggest a close connection with the Central European elite and princely burials of the Unjetica culture. The chief from Leibingen is contemporaneous with the Balatonakali burial, while the Helmsdorf chiefly grave can be dated a bit younger based on dendrochronological dates. The gold herring is similar to the Locken ring discovered in the burial of the Helmsdorf chief, while the Leibingen chief had another type of herring, the so-called Noppen ring. These gold herrings of similar type I concentrated in the wider area of the Carpathian Basin, so the place of their production was probably within this region. The non-destructive metal analysis of the gold herring from Balatonakali, provided by the PIXA facility of the Laboratory for Heritage Science of Atomki, revealed that it was made of high purity, 94% gold, in addition to 4.4% silver and copper, iron, nickel and arsenic as trace elements. It is a remarkable coincidence that the gold herrings of the princely burials in Leibingen and Helmsdorf have similar 92 and 93% gold content. However, the ratio of minor and trace elements are different from the Balatonakali Locken ring. This type of gold with silver content below 10% can be associated with Hartmann's bare gold or native gold and group B. The most significant items of the assemblage is a special variant of shaft hole axes. Tibor Kovács emphasized that the earliest and the closest parallel to the Balatonakali axe is the Stabaxt of the Melz II hoard, discovered in the Mecklenburg region, northern Germany, and proposed that the Stabaxt can be an export from the Carpathian Basin. Metallurgical analysis indicates that the composition of the Melz Stabaxt copper was identical with the other artifacts found in the Melz hoard. Therefore, Rüdiger Krause doesn't accept the idea that the Stabaxt was an export from the Carpathian Basin. Non-destructive prompt gamma activation analysis revealed that the material of the dagger, axe, flange decks, and the awl of the Balatonakali burial contain tin between 5.6 and 11 weight%, with other elements such as antimony, arsenic, and silver. Preliminary lead isotope data suggest that the copper of the artifacts can be originated from the Hron Valley. The fact that the Balatonakali X is among the first real tin bronze artifacts of the Carpathian Basin, and the 1,500 kilometer interaction zone in the Slatina-Metz axis emphasize the importance of the copper ore sources of the northwestern Carpathians. The exact details of this interaction and the location of the workshop of this axis is still unclear and require further investigations. In another case study of a high-status woman, our team provided the first strontium isotope investigations on cremation burials from Bronze Age Hungary. Now, this is the place. Carried out on the second largest cremation cemetery in the Middle Bronze Age Batya culture at Sziget-Szentmiklós, Ürgehegy, with 525 burials. This burial ground was in use between 2100 and 1500 BC. Here we analyzed 29 individuals, 26 cremations, and 3 inhumations. The main aim of this study was to identify variations in mobility patterns among individuals of different sex, age, social status, and among individuals treated with different burial rites using strontium isotope analysis. Our results show only slight discrepancies between inhumations and cremations. Data show that most of the individuals were born and lived locally, while 2 women arrived at the community from other regions. The case of the richly furnished grave, number 241, is of particular interest. The urn contained the cremated bones of an adult woman aged 25-35 and 2 7-month-old fetuses, as well as remarkably prestigious goods: a gold knop ring, a bronze neck ring with flat hammered ends, and 2 ornamental bone needles, all undoubtedly mark the individual's high status. For this exceptional case, we applied a biographic approach, collecting different dental and skeletal samples forming at different stages of the woman's life in order to reconstruct her movements from childhood to the premortem period. The petrous bone, the dentin from M1, M2, M3, and the cortical portion of the femur. This figure shows the strontium isotope results obtained on cremated bones and dentin of the high-status adult female, and on the petrous bone of one of the fetuses, and 2 bone pins found in the urn, compared with the median of the Sziget-Szentmiklós individuals, the mean of infants, and the distribution of the local baselines. The petrous bone value of the woman falls outside the local range. M1 and M2 dentin, which form during the early and late childhood and partially remodel in later stages of life, appear more radiogenic and progressively more coherent with the local range. M2 and M3 dentin, the femur cortical and fetus, one of the fetuses petrous bone, which cover the period between late childhood, early adolescence, and the adult age prior to death, are all compatible with the local isotopic signatures. The comparison of the strontium isotope ratios and the distribution of the neck ring in burials and gold knop rings therefore suggest that the adult female probably moved to Sziget-Szentmiklós during her late childhood and early adolescence, sometimes between the ages of 8 and 13, most probably from Czech or Moravian regions. The results provided a rare glimpse into a life story of a 25-35-year-old, presumably non-local woman who died while pregnant with twins, cremated and buried. Our study confirms the informative potential of strontium isotope analysis performed on different cremated tissues. Another interesting case is the burial of the elite lady of the tumulus culture from Szükösd, South Hungary, excavated in 2020 and evaluated in cooperation of the Tőr István Museum Baja and our team. The finds of this grave included heavy bronze arm spirals, numerous clothing ornaments, spiral rings of all 10 fingers, and special leg spirals, amber beads, and banded dimurex shells, Hexaplex trunculus, which indicate the outstanding social position of the deceased. According to radiocarbon results, this individual was buried in the 16th, 15th centuries BC, which means the turn of the Middle Bronze Age and Late Bronze Age in Hungary. It is also very important that all the finds were documented in their original positions. The anthropological analysis identified the fragmentary skeleton of a 20-25-year-old adult, probably a woman. The archaeogenetic evaluation confirmed the morphological sex estimation and revealed that her genetic heritage connects her with the Middle Bronze Age population of the southern Hungarian plain. Strontium isotope analysis results suggest that she lived in the area of today's Szükösd already as a small child when she was buried. No pathologic lesions could be observed on her bones, thus the cause of her death could not be determined. The material of similar leg spirals were connected to the Eastern Alpine copper alloy, the provenance of which has been identified by research as the Bronze Age mine south of today's Salzburg. Based on the almost identical wave line pattern, some of the spiral coils could have been made in the Carpathian Basin. The amber beads were probably part of a necklace. The scientific analysis of their material has revealed that they were made of succinate, Baltic amber. The shell pendants of the necklace were made of fossils from the limestone layers of the Mecsek mountain range, southwestern Hungary, while the shells found in the grave have been identified as banded dimurex, the species still living today in the Mediterranean and Adriatic seas. This shell and the Baltic amber are evidence of long-distance trade in this area of today's Szükösd. According to a previous hypothesis, tumulus culture communities brought from southern Germany into the Carpathian Basin their characteristic jewellery, pottery, and the funerary rite that counted as a novelty there, extended skeleton burials, where the deceased is placed into the grave on their back with their legs extended. As we have seen, the burial of this elite woman at Szükösd contained several such jewelry items. However, the strontium isotope and archaeogenetic analysis results connected her unambiguously with the local Middle Bronze Age population of the Great Hungarian Plain. Carbon isotope analysis results indicates that her diet was based mainly on C3 type cereals, wheat, barley, and rye, which matches the Middle Bronze Age pattern, while she didn't seem to have consumed millet, which became part of the menu in the Carpathian Basin at the period of the tumulus culture. So we can interpret her as a locally born woman who had different impacts and different trade connections that connected the Szükösd area to the Adriatic and to the Baltic Sea too. And now I would like to say some words about our most recent research. So this is the new research project beginning from 2023. This is the continuation of our multidisciplinary research. We have 3 thematic groups, as you can see: the social organization, the economic resources, and the settlement network thematic group. And we are making 4 cloud-based multi-level digital databases about the bioarchaeological data, absolute chronology, archaeometallurgical data, and micro-regional networks of settlements. And you can see we are still cooperating with many Hungarian and foreign institutions. And we also think that the dissemination of the data is of our data is also a very important thing. So, for example, I mentioned you the early Bronze Age ladies' facial reconstruction. We made a film of it, and in 2 weeks we have 64,000 views, which is, I think, quite good. And we also think that it is important, of course, to publish our results in scientific books and also in popular scientific books. And you can see here the new Hereditas Archaeological Hungarian book, which was published several months ago. And there I collected many new results of this of our research group. So thank you for your attention.